So an ancient text that's thousands of years old might seem, well, a little dusty, maybe a bit distant at first glance. But 1 Chronicles, chapter 1, it is actually this profound key that unlocks a truly universal mystery. We're talking about the search for personal identity. Like, who are we, really, right at our core? Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into exactly that.
Who are we? To really grasp the immense weight of that question, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a group of people who have just lost literally everything. I mean, imagine your home has been completely destroyed, you've been dragged away as a captive to a foreign empire, and the stuff that defined you, your nation, your culture, just your everyday way of life is just gone. That was the crushing real-world dilemma faced by the exiled Israelites. They were a people who'd had all their worldly labels completely stripped away.
Now, our source material actually refers to this exact moment as the first day of starting a new journey of grace, which is a beautiful way to put it, because it marks this definitive historical pivot. It's a complete transition away from just pure despair. We are literally watching a people step out of their absolute darkest era and right into a completely new chapter, one that's centered entirely on hope and restoration.
To really get this, we got to look at the timeline. Understanding the sequence of events here is absolutely crucial. So first came the catastrophic fall of Judah, right? The nation was completely conquered. And then came this long, grueling 70-year Babylonian exile. I mean, entire generations grew up far from home. But then, history pivots. The Persian king Cyrus issues this unprecedented edict that actually allowed the captive Jews to finally return, and that long, hard journey back to Jerusalem began.
Now here's where it gets really interesting, because the timing of these historical records, it changes everything. Let's compare the book of Kings with Chronicles. So Kings was written from the incredibly painful perspective of the exile itself. It's focused entirely on judgment, answering why the nation fell and how they failed to keep the law. But Chronicles was written after the exile, upon their return. So its focus is entirely different. It's all about post-exile restoration, laying down this brand new cultural foundation and answering that massive question for a broken people. Okay, we're back, but who are we now?
And you have to understand, the reality of coming back was incredibly severe. The nation of Judah was basically a ghost of its former self. That glorious temple in Jerusalem, the absolute center of their entire universe, was completely gone. And perhaps the most jarring part? Over those 70 years, their land had been occupied by foreign settlers, like the Edomites and Arameans. So the returning exiles show up, and they find their distinct heritage totally diluted. They were literally foreigners in their own homeland. Talk about an unimaginably deep, existential identity crisis.
So how does the author address this monumental existential crisis? Well, by opening with Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Yep, a massive genealogy, and honestly, it goes on for 9 whole chapters. I know, a giant list of hard-to-pronounce names seems like the absolute least helpful way to comfort a broken nation. But stick with me here, because this seemingly dry historical record is actually a brilliantly coded clue in solving their whole identity crisis. The absolutely crucial point here is looking at the author's intent. Like, why start with those specific names? The author could have easily kicked off this record with Abraham, right? That would have established pure national pride, kind of saying, hey, we are the chosen nation. Or they could have started with King David to build up some royal pride and political legitimacy. But they didn't. They skipped the founders of their nation and their monarchy, and they went all the way back to Adam. Why? To establish their identity at the very beginning of human creation. And that brings us to their true root identity. The text is making this incredibly powerful argument. Before you are a citizen of a nation and before you are a subject of a kingdom, your identity is fundamentally rooted in being a creation made by God. Just think about how incredibly comforting that must have been to those exiles. The author is giving them an unshakable identity. It's the kind of identity that survives even when nations fall, when temples are burned to the ground, and when all your worldly statuses are completely stripped away.
Narratively speaking, this genealogy acts kind of like a giant funnel. Step 1, Adam. Step 2, Seth. Step 3, Noah, all the way down to Abraham and Isaac. It starts with literally all of humanity, but it intentionally narrows down. Now, just to be clear, this doesn't mean the text is just deleting everyone else. The source material actually faithfully records the other brothers and descendants too, but the narrative focuses like a laser beam to highlight a very specific historical plan. It's showing that amidst all the chaos of world history, there is this distinct, unbroken line constantly moving forward.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate long game, because this Old Testament funnel, it connects directly to the New Testament. Matthew chapter 1 opens right up with the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. The source material views this ancient genealogical line not just as some dusty history lesson, but as a continuous, unstoppable salvation plan. A plan that was slowly, carefully converging on a single point, culminating ultimately in Jesus Christ. The exiles reading this could suddenly realize that despite losing everything, they were still a vital part of this grand, ongoing story.
And you know what? We actually face the exact same identity crisis today, just with different labels. We build these super fragile modern identities. We start to believe that our bank account balances define us. We let our job titles and our careers dictate our total worth. We obsess over societal evaluations and worldly status. But this ancient text is urging us to strip all of that temporary worldly labeling away. True identity, the text argues, lies in an unshakable historical and spiritual foundation, not in what you own or what people call you.
The ultimate pastoral intent of this entire text can actually be summed up in a simple phrase from our source material: standing firm on that identity. It is a direct encouragement to stop building your sense of self on the shifting sands of how the world views you or what you happen to possess. Instead, you're invited to embrace a permanent, indestructible foundation, a foundation that nobody can take away from you.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question to ponder. When the world's evaluations fade away, what identity remains for you? Think about it. If all your external titles, your wealth, and your achievements were wiped completely clean tomorrow, much like those Israelites returning from Babylon, what is the true core of who you are?